You're watching.
Subscribe.
Hello, you're watching ScreenStalker. I'm Fakidor Laurie Blake. This is Chopper Pete, who is stood on a box and is not taller than me. Very important to remember. He didn't grow overnight. He's not taller than me. He stood on a box and is E3 weeks still. Yeah!
Woo! Still. We're still very, very excited. No, don't get me off. Come on, man.
And very excitingly, if you are an old school gaming geek like I am, Nintendo finally revealed their hand with their Nintendo Direct, and they ended it on a... I got chills thinking about it. So we'll quickly whiz through a bit of what happened in the conference. They showed off some more Pokemon Sword and Shield, revealing one of the gym leaders, the water-type one called Nessa. We saw more of Luigi's Mansion. We finally saw what Animal Crossing looks like. It looks like all the other Animal Crossing. Surprise, surprise. Okay. Tom Nook, Dad Paunch.
I know, he's put on
He's got his rock in a gut,
He's let
isn't he?
himself go a little
Oh.
bit. He's got a family now, you know. It's all the stresses of life getting to him.
We've got an even better look at Astral Chain, which looks fantastic. We've
rad.
got a reveal of No More Heroes 3. And then we've got the reveal of 2 new characters for Smash. We've got the hero from Dragon Quest, which is pretty cool, but another sword lad.
To go in with all the other sword
Smash
lads.
Bros really needs more sword lads.
Yep.
But we also got Banjo and Kazooie.
Which we called.
Yeah, which
on
we
our
called.
predictions.
Yeah, good for us.
Yeah.
Bad for Kazooie, because he seems to be being stretched into a gun by his... This is an abusive friendship, Kazooie. Get out of it. We also got a little bit more of a look at Link's Awakening for the Switch, which is coming out in September this year, very excitingly. But it is not the best Zelda that was shown at E3 this year. Because,
Saith what?
surprise, surprise, Breath of the Wild 2, or the direct sequel to Breath of the Wild, as it is catchily titled at the moment.
Breath of the Wild, Electric Wildaloo. That was terrible. No.
So there was a brief announcement trailer that said the game is already in development, and it showed Link and Zelda delving into some sort of cavern beneath Hyrule, looking for the source of some funky evil magic is the only way I could describe it.
Funky.
It was funky disco magic, man.
They were having a rave down there.
Hey Zelda, you wanna go look for the funky disco magic?
So as part of their adventure through this little dungeon thing, they came across this weird green energy that was kind of spiraling, and it looked like it was making some sort of lettering or some incantations or runes or things like that. And it seemed to be they found some sort of mummy as well. Could be like a Calamity Ganon or like a Sheikah mummy or something like that.
There's a bit as they're going through the cave and they see a cave drawing, and it seems to be of a Gerudo spearman having a fight, suggesting that this might be a Gerudo cavern. And then obviously the mummy is quite big framed, has long red hair. Doesn't necessarily look like what we think Ganondorf looks like, but could be Breath of the Wild's version of Ganondorf. But seemingly seems to be the source of the corrupting energy that caused Calamity Ganon in Breath of the Wild. However, that doesn't seem to be the antagonist here, because there was also this glowing greeny, bluey hand planted on the chest of the mummy that seemed to be imbuing it with some sort of weird power. And that seemed to be linked directly to the Twilly, which are the Twilight realm-dwelling people from Twilight Princess. Midna was one, Zant is another one. You've got the weird little Twilight beasts that scamper around and look like dogs with disc faces.
Like Hypnodisc from Robot Wars. With the disc face.
Disc face.
Disc face.
That was the first draft of the name for Hypnodisc. Disc face. Interestingly, the Twilight Realm and the Twilly have been referenced in Breath of the Wild itself, because there's a scene in which, during one of the flashback memories, Zelda knights Link. And she says, whether skyward bound, adrift in time, or steeped in glowing embers of twilight, the sacred blade is forever bound to the soul of the hero. And it makes sense, because Breath of the Wild is the end of the Zelda timeline as we know it. So this suggests that Breath of the Wild sits on the Twilight Princess strand of the Zelda timeline. Or is it the nexus point where all those 3 weird timelines meet? Do they all end in Breath of the Wild? There was also a suggestion that like the land of Hyrule had been flooded and had all the water had sort of boiled off, or whatever happened to it. Boiled off.
Evaporated?
Evaporated.
There we
boiled
go.
off. It's
Boiled
fine.
off, yeah.
They've reformed the land of Hyrule, and then Breath of the Wild happened. So I don't know. I'm not very au fait with my exact which one sits on which timeline in Zelda.
No, me neither.
It's confusing and
Very.
almost like they just made it up to put in the book. So Link and Zelda find this mummy that is seemingly being pumped full of green ooze, like in the Power Rangers movies.
They call me Ivan Ooze.
It wakes up, stares at them. Suddenly, Hyrule Castle is rising off the ground, kind of like the end of Ocarina of Time, and the landscape of Hyrule looks like it's about to shift, is what it feels like.
So there's little like puffs of dust and air kind of all shaking throughout like the land and stuff. So look, something's going to change pretty significantly about the entire world.
One, this feels very similar to Majora's Mask. A lot of people have been comparing it to Majora's Mask and saying that it looks like a darker take on Zelda, because the criticism of Breath of the Wild was that maybe it was a little bit too lighthearted in places. So this could be the darker, grittier take on that, which Majora's Mask definitely was to Ocarina of Time. And Twilight Princess specifically also was to Wind Waker, which got most of the stick for looking like a brilliant, awesome, magical kids world. Wind Waker was amazing, and people going, oh, who doesn't look like an adult? Well, shut up. Shut up. I think more the point is that this looks like Majora's Mask in that Majora's Mask used the same engine as Ocarina of Time. It came out 2 years after Ocarina of Time. Ocarina of Time coming out in 1998, Majora's Mask arriving in 2000. But it essentially used the same engine and assets, mixed it all up to produce a game much more quickly. I think that's going to be more the case here. I don't think this is going to be as wide-sweeping a sequel as like if they had done the leap from Wind Waker to Twilight Princess, where it was like we've chucked out the Great Sea and all of that stuff and we're back on Hyrule Field and it's very much more a traditional Zelda game. This is going to be the Zelda remix. This is going to be Mario the Lost Levels to Super Mario Bros. Like, I think it's going to be taking the engine and the assets they already have, shaking them up and giving you a new layout of Hyrule. And then probably adding, to my mind, bringing back the dungeons in some way.
But I think we could see with this sequel, because Majora's Mask was hugely critically well received, even, you know, as much so, if not more so, than Ocarina of Time. And people thought Ocarina of Time, one of the greatest, you know, Zelda titles, one of the greatest video game titles of all time. And Majora's Mask went up to it, if not exceeded that. Could we see another best game of all time on our hands with Breath of the Wild 2? Because Breath of the Wild has been one of the best games of all time in terms of critical reception and public opinion, such as you, Laurie.
I love it.
Who said before we started recording, Breath of the Wild, best game of all time.
It is the best game of all time. And you're wrong if you think anything different. E.G. Enuma said that the new Breath of the Wild, or the sequel to it, it's not necessarily going to be related to Majora's Mask or inspired by it. What we showed you currently is a little darker.
Which sounds kind of like Majora's Mask.
Yeah, so I get what they mean. I think everyone jumped to the immediate conclusion that, like, it's a darker looking version of Breath of the Wild, and therefore Majora's Mask was the darker looking version of Ocarina of Time, so this must be the new Majora's Mask. I don't think it is in terms of, like, what inspired it or what they're actually striving for in terms of the gameplay. I think it just is in terms of the story behind it. I think this game could be out next year.
That'd be really quick.
I just think it could be. We saw like the trailer for Breath of the Wild and it was ages before we actually got the game. But if this is a remix sort of version of Breath of the Wild, taking the original assets, mixing them up, giving us a new game just using what was already sort of in place. Majora's Mask was made in 2 years.
Exactly.
It was a heck of a 2 years for the developers, but like in 2 years. So like it's been 2 years since Breath of the Wild already. This will be 3 years. That's probably plenty of time to mix things up, shake it up, and go, here you go, have something brand new.
I guess it just depends when they actually came up with the idea of doing this.
Oh, immediately.
You reckon immediately?
I would have seen the first 10 out of 10 review, and they said best game of all time, and be like, no.
Sequel.
Ooh. What's that smell? Oh, that's money.
Money.
Miyamoto crying pound coins. They don't have pound coins in Japan, but you know,
yen.
You get the gist.
Crying yen.
The other option here to me is that it's not like a remixed Hyrule with dungeons underground. It's a crossing backwards and forwards between the realms kind of thing. Like you journey into the Twilight Realm, which is the remixed version of Breath of the Wild Hyrule, but then you also go back to regular Breath of the Wild Hyrule. So it's like another layer of game on top of the game you already know. So it's familiar and different at the same time.
Exactly. It's like DLC, but an entire new game out of it. It's not just like, here's this little section of a new game. It's like, here's this thing, and we're just going to make it an entire game. And why wouldn't you mix up something like Breath of the Wild that has been so well loved?
I think the awesome thing about Breath of the Wild is that, and the reason that it's such a good game to make a sequel for, is because the mechanical aspect of it is locked in. Like the physics and the puzzling and all of that stuff is so wonderfully simple and logical and produces these immense moments of absurdity all the time. that you can just take that and supplant it into a world that feels remixed, because the other part of the magic of Breath of the Wild is exploring. But exploring a world in which the rewards actually aren't like crazy. The rewards quite often for climbing something is nice view. Jump off if you like. So that it makes it quite an easy game to go, okay, we can remix this, we can move this here, we can change that mountain, we can make this look different. And suddenly you've got this whole new playground to mess about in and explore and discover. One of the other interesting thoughts I've seen floated around is that in the trailer, Zelda has had a bit of a revamp of her style, shall we say.
She's had a bit of plastic surgery.
She's now back to being the princess again. No, she isn't actually. She's gone more in the adventuring side of things, and she's still wearing the sort of trousers and blouse from the game that she was wearing before, but she's also now wearing a cloak and a hood. Very similar to the armor that Link basically starts Breath of the Wild in. So it's like that, you know, that thing where couples morph into each other. It's basically that, but Zelda. Could this suggest that this is going to be a co-op adventure?
That would be very interesting.
She's definitely got her like her hiking boots on.
Oh yeah, I mean she's well up.
She's up for a little Rumspringer.
Bless you.
It's an Amish thing. So those are just some thoughts about the just announced direct sequel to Breath of the Wild. But what did you make of the trailer, and what do you think the game will be about? Let us know in the comments down below, and keep up with all of our other E3 coverage by watching the videos that are over there right now. I've been Fakidor Laurie Blake, this has been Chopper Pete, and remember, we're watching.